Now, I feel like that's enough explanation for now as to why I have founded Forgotten Youth. Now, I want to move on to sharing my personal story of how the lockdowns have affected me mentally. So, where to start? Let's start at the end of June 2019, where I graduated the Danish equivalent of high school. That week alone was one filled with fun emotions and unforgettable memories. The 5 days from my final exam to official graduation felt like the beginning of a journey's end and like the beginning of a new chapter. I obviously knew an unknown road lied ahead in the years to come, but the thought of how navigating that road was completely up to me, and that I now had the time and could acquire the resources to do whatever I wanted to excited me. About 2 months after graduating and reflecting on my high school years, strange time directly after and what lied ahead, I went traveling in the United States on my own for an entire month. It was one of the best and most formative months ever. I went to the most fantastic places and made new friends from all over the world. Um, Other than the countless invaluable memories I made during the trip, the biggest thing I took away from it was that I had felt like I had found my purpose while in my youth. Save up money by working and using that money to explore the world and meet people. I was confident that was how I wanted to spend my early 20s. Everything called university, education, finding a partner, and whatnot could wait. It's safe to say that my trip to the US in the early fall of 2019 laid out the path I felt like I was going to walk for the next while. After returning back home here to Denmark, I was genuinely happy, feeling like I was ready to explore the whole world and shape myself in the years to come. Shape myself that way in the years to come. In December that same year, I had some free time to just reflect on everything. Really, the my U.S. trip, graduation, the year in general, and so much more. Something I didn't really have time for directly after returning home because of work. Free time to reflect on recent memories combined with so many other great things happening that December just made me feel great. All of this continued during the final days of 2019 and into the early weeks of 2020 as well. During the first 2 months of last year, I spent a lot of time looking for a new job, but all of that while breathing off of the remarkable memories from 2019 and being super excited to continue my traveling adventures at some point during 2020 when I had found a job and saved up enough money. Continue being this wayfaring stranger, I guess you could call it. But then came March 11th, 2020. A day to say it dead honest, I will remember as the day the world as we once knew it ended. It was on that day the World Health Organization, or WHO, declared the spread of COVID-19 an official pandemic, and many world governments, including the Danish one, announced they were locking down the country for 2 weeks at the time, in hopes of containing the new virus and to protect society's most vulnerable, throwing the world into a state of financial chaos and uncertainty. It's from this point out that I'm honestly not quite sure what to say, but I'll try to explain my feelings and thoughts as best as I can. When it was first announced the country was going into lockdown, I'm just as shocked as I'm pretty sure everyone else was. As angry as I was and as strange as the almost post-apocalyptic vibes everywhere were in the early stages, I realized the only thing I could do was to go with it. I tried to make the most of the free time I suddenly had and thought that if this lockdown could help contain the outbreak, maybe it was all for the better. About 2 months later in May, however, I would say I reached my first breaking point. On and off, I began to go through periods of sadness, and looking back on it, I began lying to myself in the sense that I kept pretending I was fine when in reality I was far from it. I think the best way to describe it is that the lockdowns have left me with this feeling of uncertainty. Uncertainty about myself, the state of the world, and my own future. To be honest, I've kind of felt like that ever since March 11th, really, but it wasn't until May last year I properly realized that I wasn't alright. But even then, I decided to not do anything proper about it, continuing to feed into this hope that things would be better and would be back to normal soon, which I feel like was all we were told by those responsible for the lockdowns. Over most of the summer, I definitely still felt mentally wounded. But at the same time, most of society had reopened, and I felt somewhat content and decided to make the most of the summer. Bike rides, country retreats, seeing friends, watching movies, and more. In the months since, it has all come in waves, really. During the early fall, I'd say I felt somewhat happy, but then again, still with this uncertainty to it. And for different reasons in the late fall, I would say I began to feel somewhat hopeful again. Things were looking decent for me personally, and society was for the most part still open. But the truth is, the situation was clearly getting worse as restrictions were being amplified, both worldwide and in Denmark, which simultaneously has not made it any easier for my mental state. Over the last about 2.5 months from when this is recorded, where restrictions have also been heavily amplified in different countries, including my own, I have truly begun to feel hopeless. About halfway through December, I would say I hit my lowest point. I was upset, I was angry, I was doubtful, perhaps I even became borderline depressed. But somehow, amidst the mental turmoil, I found the will to try and use those dark thoughts and feelings to start this project and to help those who feel the same way. I feel hopeless and uncertain as to if I have a future on this planet, as to if it will even be possible to travel the same way I did in the fall of 2019 anytime in the near future, and if the enthusiasm about becoming my own person will even be there anymore. I'm hopeless thinking there will be any other side of lockdowns anymore, as the politicians who are also responsible for them have kept telling us in order to keep us hopeful ever since they first began. Whether it's intentional or not, I can't help but question if it's going to be worth living in a world that is likely just going to be the ruins of the old one. If it's going to be worth living in a world where some people may pretend everything is fine, when the world will likely be in shambles for many years to come, and there will be people like me who need help in terms of carrying on. As controversial as these opinions might be, I believe aspects of the lockdowns are questionable and ultimately ineffective, and let alone thinking the outbreak can be controlled is extremely naive. Look at it like this. Even if the first lockdown last spring helped lower the amount of cases, did it make a difference in the long run? Absolutely not. All it did was that it allowed society to be open with restrictions for about a few months until the amount of cases inevitably started growing exponentially again, and we were back at the beginning where everything is closed down. Despite all these heavy restrictions, guidelines, and safety measures, I'd say it's becoming clear we can't control the outbreak. I say to myself that perhaps the spread is just Mother Nature's will and is a natural phenomenon that isn't meant to be fought and is here to stay. Because even when masses have been vaccinated, I would be really surprised if the virus suddenly disappears. I hope more people will give this some thought and maybe even accept that it's possible the virus is here to stay for many years to come. Of course, you could tell me that the inbound mass distribution of vaccines and actual vaccination of the masses is going to turn the tide. I just don't believe it's that simple. I think the only thing the vaccine is going to do is doing its part in slowing the spread of the virus. Afterwards, there will still be an economy to rebuild, a world to reopen, and last but not least, I think the overall franticness will not go away anytime soon and will stay for many years to come. I can't help but feel like there is this naive idea and this pretending that vaccines will make everything go back to normal, but I believe the truth is what I just mentioned, and I honestly doubt there will even be such thing as normal again. I'm tired of giving into this pretending that once vaccines are available, everything will be better. Everything I've said so far may give anyone who's watching this an idea of where I stand politically on the topic, but I want to make this perfectly clear. I have founded the project on an unleaning and apolitical foundation, and personally I don't affiliate with any wing. I obviously don't support the extreme right wings who tend to make up conspiracy theories about the outbreak, calling it a government hoax, biological warfare, and whatnot. But at the same time, I don't at all affiliate myself with the left wings either, some of whom have a tendency to solely blame the spread of the virus on those not following guidelines, if not shame them. As I said, I consider myself in the project apolitical in the matter, and the only thing I want to do is just work towards helping the young people who have been mentally affected by the lockdowns and who might be uncertain of their future. It's possible that some of you who are watching this and who aren't necessarily in the same age group as me may not fully understand the scale of or why this is such an important case. For example, my own dad, who is 52, has for assurance and comfort, I guess, told me many times recently that when he was my age back in the late 80s, early 90s, he also felt uncertain about his own future. He didn't know exactly what he wanted to do or how he wanted to spend his youth. In some ways, the same situation I'm in right now, but I tell him the big difference is that he had the countless opportunities to shape himself I mentioned in his hands. I don't. Our parents' shaping years are behind them, and how they spent them may be many different stories, but regardless, the opportunities that millions of young people currently don't have were available to them. They weren't directly in the situation we're in, and that might make it difficult for them to fully understand us. But should anyone who is a parent to a son or daughter who is young and in the same situation as me be watching this, I'm asking you, even if it's difficult and you can't fully relate to this situation, just try to understand us and try to support us right now when we need it the most. Another example in terms of this misunderstanding is that I've had a few different people tell me that advocating that much for young people who are simply not able to travel or attend social events is almost along the lines of a first world problem, and that we should just be grateful we haven't lost someone close to us. To those who might be thinking that, let me say this. I'm obviously sorry for anyone who has lost someone they cared about due to the virus, but I just can't use that perspective for anything in this case. And this project isn't about that. It's about how the lockdowns have affected the mental health of young people. I'm simply mentioning these missing opportunities as that might play a big role in that. Finally, to anyone who might be thinking many things after watching this, I hope that maybe you ask yourself, have the lockdowns made me feel uncertain about my future? Am I angry that my shaping plans are on pause indefinitely because of the lockdowns? Am I holding back on that anger? And how much longer am I willing for the world to open up again and return to normal? Now, I hope this video and some of the things I've said in it resonates with some of you who are watching this. I want to hear your story. If you feel like the lockdowns have taken a toll on your mental health, has left you feeling upset or uncertain or something third, I will happily receive your story. I believe the more voices and stories we can gather, the more likely it is we can make progress with this project and ideally get the attention of the politicians responsible for the lockdowns. I can only hope the more voices speaking up, the more visible this problem will become. If you have a story you want to share, you can send it by email at forgottenyouth2020@gmail.com. You can share your story either by writing it as a piece of text or by making a video like I am. You can go with whichever way you prefer, and you can choose to have it shared in name or anonymously should you feel more comfortable with that. I will be posting another video on our platforms that has a little more information about it, should you want to know more. So, that is all I have to say about this for now.